You got to hire good people. Then you got to tell them what you want and then get out of their way and then get in their way and follow up and then make sure it's happening.
This is the Staying Power Podcast, a show that explores the challenges business owners face as they grow. I'm Brandon Hall.
And I'm Thomas Castelli.
And together we ask the tough questions to show you that running a business is not for the faint of heart. But if you have staying power, you'll overcome your challenges and achieve lasting success.
Hi, everybody. We're joined here today with Jeff Russell, who is president of the Pango Group, a title and escrow company that he joined back in 2000. So it was about 20 years ago. He's a lot of experience with culture and managing people. And we had a great discussion today.
Yeah, so Jeff is my business coach. He's been coaching me for about 2 years. And just a really good guy to go to bounce ideas off of. And one of the things that Jeff does for me is just really make me feel not alone while I'm experiencing pain and challenges in my business. I can go to him and he's experienced it. I mean, he joined Pango Group from the get-go with his partner, and they've grown it to, I think he said 265 employees since the year 2000. So they've experienced a lot of growth, a lot of ups and downs. And then we talk about some of that stuff here today, but Jeff is really, really big on culture and people. He knows that a title company is a service company, and the people are the largest assets of that company. So,
yeah, I think one of the biggest things to keep in mind for everybody who is out there who owns a business is that managing people, there's a certain aspect of it that you have to understand. And it's not always about just the work that someone's performing. Like, you can't just hire somebody and just hope to God that they're going to just do the work. You have to onboard them to your company. You have to get them acclimated to the culture. There's a lot of things that go on behind it. And I think we do a great job of starting to talk about in this episode of why that is important. And before we just jump right in and let you hear everything straight from Jeff, I just did want to point out for anybody out there who is a reader that the book Winning by Jack Welch, in his first chapter, he does a great section on mission and values, which is something we're going to talk about in the episode. And without further ado, we're just going to go ahead and let you hear from Jeff himself. Jeff, thanks so much for taking the time to come on the show today. Could you give our listeners a little information on your background?
Sure. Thanks for having me. I'm a 56-year-old entrepreneur that loves businesses that are people involved. So I like people. I like service businesses. I like doing deals. But most of all, it's about people. And really, whether it was escrow, which is what I do, or a tire manufacturer, I'm about the people.
Absolutely. You can't have a business without people in some way, shape, or form. All business is really about people, right? So we understand you do have a title and escrow company that you started back in 2000. Would you be able to just give us a little overview of why you decided to start that business and how you knew it was the right time to go into business?
Yeah, sure. Actually, my business partner started it in 1995. We are childhood friends. I met him. I was 12 years old. He was 6 years old. We met on Mary Street in a little town north of Glendale. We actually have a business. One of our businesses is called Mary Street, where we met. So he had an escrow company. He was an escrow officer, and he had 3 employees running an escrow desk. And we started a mastermind group, and we were in our 20s, and we thought, hey, that sounds cool. Let's do this mastermind thing that I think we heard in Tony Robbins' cassette tapes that we were listening to. So we met every Wednesday morning and just talked about what was going on in his escrow business. And I had a technology business that I was involved with and a founder and partner in. And that's how it all started. In 2000, I came on board because we thought alike. And sure enough, we did. So we partnered and started to grow the business. When I came on in 2000, he was 25 employees, and we're at 250 employees now in 14 offices.
So before we go into the incredible growth, can you please briefly explain what a cassette tape is?
Sorry.
Because I have no idea. Oh, just kidding. All right. So let's talk about that growth and that scale. Did the growth happen just kind of as a byproduct? Was it planned? Was it organic? Talk to us about that.
So my partner, Scott, and I, we were big readers and big learners, maybe because we're junior college dropouts. So we figured we better learn somehow. So we read a lot, and we read a book called The E-Myth and decided, hey, this sounds cool. This whole thing about working on your business and not in your business. So I agreed to come on board, and we agreed to partner as long as he got off of running his desk day to day. And that's what we did. So, and for us, it was just grow because it sounded exciting and fun. We didn't know what we were getting into at the time. And we just started growing.
So what is your partner primarily responsible for? And what are you primarily responsible for? Like, how do you guys split up the duties?
Yeah, thanks. Great question. He's a very high level thinker, sometimes even too high of a thinker. And I'm a pretty high level thinker, but someone had to do what we thought about. So originally, we were IT, we did everything. Janitors, when it flooded, we were the guys that came on board. We did payroll, we were HR. We were just flying by the seat of our pants. So I was the one that became the doer, if you will. So right now, his responsibility is to think high, and mine is to say, that's bullshit. We can only do this right now. So he's the CEO. And so, for instance, when blockchain came out 5 years ago, he was in front of it. So we were one of the first escrow companies to close a Bitcoin transaction because he was just thinking ahead of everything. One of our values is forward thinking. So we want to be prepared for whatever the market's doing. So he's the guy out there thinking about what's happening next in the world. And I'm more of the guy saying, okay, how do we apply that day to day in our world?
Have you read the book Traction?
Yeah, read. Great book. Our COO is a freak about that book. So
are you like the integrator then, essentially? Is that?
Yeah, and I'm not great at it. So our COO really is the integrator. I'm set between the CEO, my business partner, and my COO, who just wants to get it done right now. Let's go. And he would leave too big a wake. So my partner has the idea, and my COO says, great, this is exactly how we're going to do it. And I make it match in between the two of them.
That sounds like an amazing COO. How do you find somebody like that?
We got really lucky with Joe. Yeah. So Joe was president of a competitor, and I stalk good competitors. I'm always watching what they're doing. So our bank called and said, hey, Joe's out of a job. And I called him and said, come on up. He lives 2 hours away from us. I had a 2.5 hour interview, and all I was doing is trying to get information about my competitor, because it turns out when people leave places, they like to talk. And we just hit it off. And I took him downstairs to my partner, Scott, and I said, we got to do something with this guy. And we hired him as our sales manager. And at the time, I was our sales manager. So I gave that job away, and Joe became our sales manager, and he's now our chief operating officer after 7 years.
And a real quick sidebar, because you said you like to stalk your competitors. If somebody is listening to this and they're going, yeah, I know that my competitors have really good talent, how could they potentially reach out to that talent without making it, I don't know, weird, unprofessional, well, maybe?
No, it's weird. I'm sorry, but it's weird. I have a thing about, I will walk into competitors' offices and say, hi, I'm Jeff. I'm one of the owners of Glen Oaks Escrow. Just would love to get to know you. And it's amazing the reaction you get when you do that. They'll either go, what in the hell are you doing in here? Or sure, come on in. And there's such advantages and there's some disadvantages. You get to know your community and what's happening, but also we don't recruit from companies that we become friends with. So you have to be careful of where you walk in, because once I have a relationship, my partner is the same way. We don't recruit against those people, and we share a lot of information. So Facebook, LinkedIn, and a lot of times it's just calling and saying, hey, this is who I am and what are you doing? So
100% can't agree with that more. Used to be a recruiter. LinkedIn's a great way to kind of go in there. If you're going to recruit from your competitors, for anybody who's listening, do not message everybody in your competitor's firm at one time. You will raise red flags and the guards will be alerted.
Sounds like you've got some personal experience with that, Tom.
No comment. Yeah. So Jeff, Brennan tells us that you're big on culture. And, one of the things I think for a lot of business owners out there is a lot of times they're focused on the hard aspects of the business, like the delivering of the service, and the culture building aspect of it can become a little bit more ethereal, I guess is a word to say. Would you be able to discuss why cultures are so important when building a company?
Yeah. If you don't have a culture or don't think you have a culture, you're wrong, because the culture builds itself. So for us, we had a culture, but we didn't define it. We didn't put it up on the wall and say, this is what we stand for. So once we sat down and decided, okay, what do we stand for? What do we want to be? What's fun for us? And then took it to our company So what we did is we discovered what our mission vision was, and then we let the company decide what help us with our values. So our mission is to run exceptional real estate services that enhance the lives of our people, our partners, and the communities we serve. So for us, no matter what we do, we have a notary company, we have an escrow company, we have a storage company. It's real estate services that enhance the lives of the people, partners, and communities we serve. So that'll live forever with us and our company. And our vision is pretty simple, which I hated when this first started, is to create raving fans of everybody we touch. My partner and I argued about this back and forth. I thought it was corny and hokey. But the reality is, if you can create a raving fan from everybody from employees to the FedEx guy who walks in and says, there is something really bitching about bitching. I'll tell you guys what bitching means. You don't know what cassette tapes are, so I'll let you know bitching was a word back in the 70s and 80s.
Please do.
So it's creating an experience for whoever walks in the door. And if a FedEx guy comes into our Sherman Oaks office or our Glendale or our Palm Springs office, that they go, this is someplace special. And it's a place people want to work. It's a place people want to do business with, and it's part of the community. So did that answer the questions, or did I go off on a rant?
No, I think it answered the question. And was there any particular challenges? And I know you had mentioned a little bit about the back and forth with your partner on it, but was there any other challenges that you faced when building the culture at the companies you were at?
God, yeah. It took us, once we knew who we were, or we knew the words behind it, and we put it on plaques and we put it on the walls, that's all great. And so many companies just throw it up on a wall, but they don't do anything about it. And it probably does more harm than good. What we did is we started just banging our people with it. So the intranet, we have a Friday message that we do every Friday. When we were managing somebody, and they were one of our big values is grace and kindness. So if you're being an asshole, we would say, listen, it's right here. Grace and kindness is a part of what we do. It's really important to us. I want you to be here if you want to be here. And if you don't start acting with grace and kindness, you're not going to have a job here. So we just started managing to that mission and our values. And it took a couple years. We did contests where I'd walk into an all company meeting at one of the offices, and I'd have $100 bill and say, okay, who knows 4 of our values? First time you do it, everybody's looking at you with blank stares, right? Second time you do it, some of them start to know it, and you just mix it up, right? A $50 gift card. And we just started doing contests, even different ways to think of. We did a bingo on that we'd play. So anything we could. And really, we figured we didn't get through to them until someone came to us and said, all right, I get it. I hear you. That's when we know, okay, now we're doing something. Now it's sinking in. And that was probably 2.5, 3 years.
So I'm guessing telling them one time just doesn't work. It's not.
No. We figured you have to tell them verbally. You've got to email them. They've got to hear it. They got to see it. They got to touch it. So for us, it's just, even when we change a procedure, we need to make sure that they're hearing it. We are responsible as managers to make sure they hear it. We don't just send an email and expect everybody to have read it. So I tell all of my managers, email it, tell them, email it again, call them, tell them it again, put it on the intranet page. And once they're saying, okay, then you've done your great job.
Well, why is it important for employees to be able to regurgitate what the values are?
I go here every day and I love what I do. And I want to let everybody know what the rules are. I want them to know what we stand for. And I want them to come to work. I want people that get it, right? Brandon, we've talked about this. I say everybody deserves to be treated fair, but not everybody deserves to be treated the same. That's it. So I'm going to treat you fair always. But if you suck, I am not going to treat you the same as someone who busts their ass, shows up early, works late, starts talking to me with my values in mind. That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to spend time with. That's how coaching started for me, because we had a couple young people that were just killing it. And we decided, all right, I'm going to start this coaching program. So we have 45 people in coaching. We offer it to every single employee. 20 of them coach with me. And then we've hired coaches to coach the other people. And that's mostly for personal issues. And I'm telling you, when people go through coaching, it, I believe, makes them live more closely to the life they want to live. And it makes for better employees.
So we're going to circle back to the treated fairly but not the same statement, because I think it's a very rock solid mindset that owners can get into. So we'll circle back to that in a minute. But in terms of building out your culture, you said that you sat down with your partner and you decided like what you want to stand for. Can you talk us through that process? And my follow-up question to this is going to be, once you kind of made that public, you blasted that out, you let everybody know, was there any backlash from your current employees?
Yeah, first on the backlash, there was a little backlash, but mostly people are a bit complacent in the beginning. They're like, yeah, okay, sure, boss. Yeah, I get it, boss. Uh-huh. And it's when you start seeing it in your offices show through, or you start seeing it in their emails that you go, there it is. There it is. I get it. Or when they call you out and say, wait, that's not very graceful and kind. What are you guys doing? And we go, oh shit, yeah, we better think about this. So yeah. And you know what? Some people just will never get it. And you just have to live with that, right? You want everybody to be marching right behind you. And there's always going to be a knucklehead at the back of the line that just doesn't get it. That's where the fair but not the same comes in. And as far as us starting it, we didn't have a clue. We sat in what we called our war room, which was basically an office with a window that no one could see in. And we just argued. We looked at who are we? What do we stand for? How is this going to live forever? We had probably 50 different mission statements from different companies. And it took us probably 30, 40 hours to come up with, and then have someone, because, it was this big, sorry, we're on sound. It was a huge list. And then we wanted to make it simple. So I was really striving for something simple, but says so much in the simplicity. And we found a word, right? Enhance. That meant a lot to us. We want to make sure we're enhancing. What are we enhancing? Are we enhancing money? Are we enhancing so that's just kind of how it worked out.
All right. So in a service business, the biggest asset is generally going to be the people that make up the organization. And one of the biggest challenges some people have is setting the right expectations with employees. So our question to you is, how do you set very clear expectations with your employees?
Well, that's pretty simple. You just say, here's your expectation. Here's what we want to achieve. And then you track it, right? You can't just say, we want this. You've got to say, this is what we want. And then you've got to check in and say, great, you almost hit it, or you didn't hit it, or you're totally screwing it up. But you've got to get feedback and follow up. So the biggest thing is set it and then the follow up. And when we were a young company, I think the one thing that our employees would have said that we sucked at was the follow up and the follow through. We always thought, a matter of fact, I think I can find one of my bios from 10 years ago that says, basically, we hire good people and get out of their way. Well, that's great. You got to hire good people. Then you got to tell them what you want and then get out of their way, and then get in their way and follow up and then make sure it's happening. So I would say it's about good people and giving them the direction they need to be successful. And then communicating, even when they're not, is saying, listen, I want to make sure this is a good place for you. And if you don't start performing the way we've talked about, this is not going to be the place for you. So it's giving them that straight feedback that says, I want you to be successful, and what you're doing will not allow you to be successful in this company.
So part of it's just setting the expectation of what you want to see and then following up to ensure that happens. But it's not always about showing them how to do it, right? That's the part where if you hire the good people, they'll be able to figure that aspect of it out.
Yeah, in most cases. The telephone, I want it answered a certain way. When we transfer a call, everybody should say, my pleasure to connect you. So there's certain things that will absolutely be done the Pango way, we call it. And then the other, you can add your personality to it.
So in terms of setting expectations, you mentioned that you need to be able to track the progress. So are you setting primarily quantitative expectations, like you need to complete X number of things within a given time period?
Yeah, it's basically based on a number, right? It starts with a budget. So here's your budget. Here are the numbers you need to hit. What tools do you need to get there? But we also have some other things like we call them personal development plans. So you've got to make sure you do your personal development plans every 6 months on all your employees. So that's hit your numbers and make sure you're having your personal development plans.
And what's in a personal development plan?
It's basically, how are you doing? How are we doing? What do we need to do to get better? And what do you want to be when you grow up? you want to be an escrow? Do you want to be a singer? Do you want to be, and these are the things you need to do to get to that next step.
So setting expectations, I think is, like you said, it's relatively easy. I would say even tracking expectations, tracking progress can be relatively easy. I think that, at least in my personal experience, the incredibly difficult thing is actually holding people to those expectations on an ongoing basis. And from my experience, it's a combination of tracking, but then also having those tough conversations and saying, you are not on track here. So when people are missing their expectations or they're falling behind, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but can you dive into what that conversation looks like and how to have it?
Sure. First of all, I'm going to assume that your positive bank account is full, so that you work in a place where it's a good environment and most people like to be, which I think we create. So our culture creates a place that people like to be. And I'm always going to make sure I'm saying, nice job, way to go. And then when it's not, I'm going to say, hey, Brandon, you hit almost everything last month and you missed these 3 things. And these 3 things are really important to me. Is there something going on with you I should know about? No, Jeff, everything's fine. You happy where you're at? Yeah, I'm really happy. Okay. I'm concerned that if you don't get these 3 things going, you're not going to hit your goals for next month. Is there any help you need from me to make sure you hit those goals? No, I got it. I'll hit it. And then the next month goes by and you come back and go, hey, Brandon, we had this conversation. Now I'm concerned if this is the right place for you. I asked you what you needed to be successful. You said nothing, and you assured me it would get done. If we have this conversation in another 30 days, I don't want it to be to say, you're going to have to go find another job. Is there anything you need from me so that you can reach your goals? So it goes something like that. And it's always from the heart. I want them to be successful, and I want to give them the tools to be successful. And if they can't, I want them to go somewhere else and do it.
That is that last minute I will be playing on repeat multiple times. That's a conversation that all business owners should commit to memory, because it's a very good way to have it. Now, in terms of meeting expectations, is there any flexibility in missing expectations? Let's say that you give somebody a revenue target of $200,000 for the year and they come in at 195, and you think 195 is still pretty darn good, but they still miss the expectation. How do you handle something like that?
I would ask them what they think. So I'd say, hey, Brandon, or hey, Tom, we'll pick on Tom. Hey, Tom, we came within $5,000 of your number. What do you think? And Tom's either going to go, it's great, I'm so excited, or it really sucks, I just missed it, I really should have. And then I'll adjust and say, okay, what do you need to do to get there the next time? If it's $5,000 and I think it's great, or they think it's great, it's just not worth messing with. If it's within 10 or 20%, I'm good with it in most cases. Now, if they didn't hit their minimum, let's say that your superstar is at 200,000 and your minimum producer needs to be at 40,000, and they only hit 35, you have a different discussion. Hey, Brandon, you know that 40 is our minimum. You hit 35. Let's go on a 90-day plan to make sure you can get to your numbers. I want to make sure you're successful here. Do you like where you're at? What kind of support do you need? Same kind of conversation.
And when we were coaching, I remember when we are still coaching. So there was a conversation that we had, I think it was about a year and a half ago, early 2019, where I was asking you about these deadlines, these expectations, revenue numbers, and that type of thing, things that I was giving to my staff as targets. And you had said something that really has always stuck out for me. And it's, hey, if your monthly target is $15,000 a month in revenue and you're at 14,000 and you come to me and ask for a raise or a bonus, I don't even want to have the conversation until you get to the target. Can you kind of walk through that a little bit, like the methodology behind it and what that does for you, maybe how to have that conversation too?
So you're asking if someone's asking for raises and they haven't hit their numbers.
Yeah, raises, bonuses, their target's 15, they're at 14. What do you do in that case?
So first, I would be clear up front. So I would make sure that they understand what it takes to get a bonus. Because the more clear you are up front, the less chance of having that conversation when they're not hitting their numbers. And this is going to happen with certain people. This is the whole fair or the same conversation. if someone's not hitting their numbers and they see someone else excelling or getting a bonus and they find out about it, my conversation would be, hey, you didn't hit your numbers and I want you to hit your numbers. Are you getting all the support you need? Is there something else that needs to happen? Because if you don't hit those numbers, you will not get a bonus. You will not get a raise. So it's just got to be cut and dry to say, here's the way it is. If you haven't set up in the beginning the standard, then I would just say, just explain it if someone comes up and says, hey, I want a raise. Well, here's what you need to do to get a raise. Because you're not just going to get a 3% raise or 4% raise. It's just not the way it works here.
If someone doesn't know, say there's a business owner out there listening to this and they don't know what the expectations should be, do you have any advice to help them figure out what expectations they should be setting in the first place?
Well, you got to figure out your expectation. I guess you could start, if you don't know, how much money do you want to make and what do you have to do to make that money, right? Because what kind of revenue do I need? If I want to make $100,000 and I have X amount of EBITDA, what revenue? You have to start somewhere. So start with your expectations on numbers and say, okay, here's my expectation. So many times as we get busier and busier, we just start hiring, right? It's like having holes in your boat and you just start plugging with hires. And once you get everything plugged and it's going, you don't know where the hell you're going. You've got to pick a direction. I don't know where the hell that came from.
No, that was good, off the cuff. And kind of along these lines, one of your favorite sayings, or at least I might be making this up, but I think one of your favorite sayings, because you repeat it to me all the time, is you should treat everybody fairly, but not everybody is treated the same. So one of the things that you've really helped me do is add a lot of clarity into my organization, my firm, especially in 2020 here. And it's a tough thing to come from not holding a line, not setting clear expectations, and then not following up and managing to those expectations, to really trying to do that in a really good way. And I guess my question is setting expectations and being really clear and then drawing that line and saying, hey, you haven't hit your results and you're not going to get this and I'm not budging. Is that fair?
Yeah, fair is a great word, right? I mean, asking somebody if something's fair, it's not about right or wrong. It's fair in their mind. So I think it's a great way to ask the question, is just to say, here's our plan. Here's what can happen if you hit these results. Does that seem fair to you? If they say no, then you probably have the wrong person in the seat and you've got to make some decisions about it. If they say, yes, it seems fair, and I have these issues to take care of, then that's where you have to decide if you're going to give it a little longer. People have personal shit going on all the time. And we make decisions about that in our business every day. Hey, he's having a rough time. His mom's going through this. And we give people that leeway. It's part of why our business is fun for us. And we can make enough money and make a cool place to work. So fair is a great word.
And what does everybody is treated fairly but not the same mean?
We will treat everybody with dignity. We will abide by the laws and rules and regulations, and we're going to be a great place to work. And when you just give that extra effort and you show you're going to mentor somebody else, you're going to stay a little later because something happened, you're going to help a coworker pick them up, and you're going to talk to leadership and say, hey, so-and-so's having a rough problem. I'm just going to treat it differently. And we want more people like that. Clients, same way. Every client, I tell my escrow officers this all the time. Every client deserves to be treated fair. Not every client deserves to be treated the same. Because when you have those clients that are just, we all have them, that are a joy to work with, and you just like answering the phone, man, I'm going to go even a little further. If you have someone that every time they call, you're like, oh, I don't want to talk to this so-and-so, I'm going to treat them different. So
if you have two people, let's say that you have somebody that is putting in extra hours, they're doing the mentoring, they're helping outside of their day-to-day job, they're really helping move the firm forward. And then you have another person who's a really good rock. They come in, they do their time, they're 40 hours a week, and they perform well. How do you apply this fair but different mentality to those two people?
You know, it's all a lot different. So that one that's just a rock and does a great job and does what they're supposed to do. I'm going to ask them, how are you? What do you need? Do you need anything else? I'm probably not going to go to their wedding or their kid's first birthday, right? So there's a connection that you have with some people. And also, it's the opportunity you have within the company. The ones that get it, they're the ones that are the future leaders, right? They're our bench. They're the ones we hire. A lot of our assistants come through our receptionist position. So they come in as a receptionist, they learn who we are, what we're all about. And I focus a lot on these receptionists because I think it's an opportunity. Every person they touch, whether it's internal people or external people, they have influence on them. And I want to make sure that they understand who we are. They have opportunities to grow and become an assistant, an escrow officer, and a leader in this company. I want those people to grow into leadership positions. So I'm going off your question a little bit. But even some of them, they just want to be an assistant. They'll be an assistant forever. Great. You are going to be treated great at this company. But the other one comes and says, hey, Jeff, how do I become an escrow officer? Hey, Jeff, how do I have your job? Those are the ones that come into coaching and you spend a little time with to get them up to the next level so that we can create not just a great company, but a legacy of this company. And even if they go somewhere else, that they carry that legacy with them a little bit, right? That they go, this is how it's supposed to be done. And they can carry that with them to other companies.
So that aspect is just a little subjective there. One of the questions we ask pretty much everybody who comes onto this podcast, was there a particular challenge that you faced as you were scaling or growing the company that almost made you quit? That was just so difficult that you're just like, you know what, I'm just going to go get a job or something like that.
Yeah. You just want one? Because there's a bunch of them. Yeah, there's a bunch of them. You know, when wire fraud first starts and you have a big wire that goes missing, that's one of those days you go, oh my goodness. But I guess one of the times I was wondering if I'd have to get a job, probably end of 2006, beginning of 2007, everybody talks about the crisis of 2008. But for us, we started to realize it in 2007. The REO market, which is the foreclosure market, started to hit and our business dropped. Our residential resale business just dropped in half. And I remember my business partner coming to me, puts his arm around me and says, well, I can go back to running an escrow desk. What are you going to do? I was like, oh shit, that wasn't very nice. But that was a time when, you know, we were doing layoffs and layoffs they're the hardest thing in the world. The business just wasn't there. And I was laying off, 4 and 5 people at a time. And it was just brutal. And for me, at least, I sit with it a week before, I sit with it a week after, and it was a pretty horrible time. And then REO hit because we were forward thinking enough and we had to hire 16 people a day just to keep up with the business that was happening.
We're filming this early June 2020. We're in the middle of COVID. Things are starting to reopen. How does today's economic crisis compare to 2007, 8, and 9?
Yeah, it's a totally different animal. I mean, with the federal government stepping in with the PPP loans, we were down 65% in the beginning of April. So the last week of March, real estate basically stopped. We've come out of that way quicker. So we're off about 20% now. And the market from 2007, 2008 for us was such a volatile market. There was no transactions. Then there were REO transaction and was just enough. And the federal government back in 2008 interjected as well. No foreclosures. So they stuck their nose into that. It was kind of unprecedented times there, but to the detriment of our business, at least. This time, it seems that the PPP loan kept us from any layoffs, keeping fully staffed. And we're only off, like I said, by 20% right now. So totally different situation.
With the current crisis and your focus on culture and people, what were you doing at the beginning to kind of keep people informed, or were you keeping people informed? How do you make sure that your culture remains intact as this crisis unfolds?
Yeah, so we do and still do. We started in the first week of April with a weekly call to our managers, and we give them an update on leading indicators, which for us are listings. So we'd say, here's what we're seeing in listings in all the counties that we're in Southern California. here's where we're at in opening. So we were very transparent, telling them exactly where we were. We stopped talking about budget. We just started talking about a break-even number so that people understood this is where we need to be. And managers asked questions. Are we going to lay people off? And before the PPP loan came out, we said, we don't know, but we can tell you what the next 2 weeks is going to look like. And even today, we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but we can tell you what the next 2 weeks look like. When the PPP loan came, we said nothing is going to happen until end of June. Nothing at all. So that's how we've handled it. But we communicated it. We have an intranet page that goes through specific to the virus, so they can go and see testing locations. They can see all the regulations in our offices. We don't allow clients in, how to do sign up. So everything's on the intranet page. And I think we're pretty good communicating that.
And normally we ask, as it pertains to the greatest challenge that you faced, how would you do it differently if you could do it differently? And I guess the current economic crisis is that doing it differently. So what did you do differently during this crisis that maybe you didn't do in the 07, 8, and 9 crisis, or maybe wish you would have done?
Well, in the 07, 08 crisis, we should have made decisions quicker. All through up until 2011, we just should have made decisions quicker. And this time, I don't think I'll know the answer to that question about what's going on now and what mistakes I made for a little bit. I know I made some, but I don't think I'll have the answer to that maybe till middle of 21, because I still don't know what the rest of this year is going to look like. So we were built to be a certain size company, and no matter how good it gets going forward the rest of the year, we're going to be at the end of the year 30%, 40%, 30% less in revenue than we thought going into it, and down from last year as well. It's the first time in 15 years that we've shrunk.
Can you touch on making decisions faster? Because I know you and I have talked about this, and I think that this pertains to like making a plan and just executing the plan. But tell us what that means. What does it mean when you say I should have made decisions faster during 07, 08?
Yeah, I should have made people decisions quicker. You know, in a service business, it's about people, and I should have laid off quicker than I did. I held on, and I shouldn't have done that to the company. So being a people first company, it's very tough when those things come up, but you have a responsibility to all the other people, and I should have made those decisions quicker.
How do you balance that? How do you come to that conclusion? Because I've experienced this too. You care about your people. You don't want to affect their lives negatively, but you know that the business needs that done. So how do you reconcile that?
Yeah, I don't spend a lot of time anymore on that. I know that this is how we run the company, and this is the number we need to hit. And if we're not hitting that number, then there's decisions we need to make. So we take it very seriously. Any cuts that are going to be made, we cut all non-personnel cuts with everything we can. After we do that, we call it a drill. So I know what the business needs, and I'm willing to make those decisions quickly. So I don't struggle as much with the decision. I struggle with doing it. But we've also told the people, this is where we need to be. These are the expectations. And if we don't hit those, we're going to have to make some adjustments.
Got it. So is there any specific tips or tricks you would have that you'd want to share with our listeners today that we haven't yet had a chance to discuss?
But, for us, it's people first. That's what it is. So we go in with a people first attitude, and I'm going to do everything I can to make a good place to work, selfishly, because I want to enjoy it and I want to be around people I want to be around. So I guess if I had one thing to say is just don't suck.
That's definitely something to strive for. I could say that's big. So if our listeners wanted to learn more about you, your business, what you have going on, what would be the best way for them to do so?
You can go check out pangogroup.com, PANGOGROUP.com. It says a little bit about me and all of our different brands. LinkedIn, I'm Jeff Russell at, I don't know how that works. Jeff Russell. You can find me, Pango Group.
All right. Well, we want to thank you for coming on the show today. Culture is definitely a huge part of any business. And I think there's a lot of good gems that were discussed here today. And so we're looking forward to putting it out.
Sweet. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, leave us a review on iTunes and share the show with other business owners who may be facing their own growth challenges. And if you own a professional services firm, consider joining our private community. The Staying Power Collective is a community where owners of accounting, law, and consulting firms discuss best practices for running and growing virtual businesses. You'll get access to our Slack group, and you'll have a Zoom meeting once a month with a small group of other firm owners. To apply for the group, head on over to www.stayingpowercollective.com and fill out the brief form. And if you have suggestions for future topics or guests, or if you have general questions or feedback, send us an email at contact@stayingpowercollective.com. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great rest of your week.